Well, hello, and welcome to episode 19 of the Bomb City Podcast. My name is Nick, and thank you so much for tuning in. This episode's a great one. It's our interview with Jason Weber from At The Risers. Now, Jason's not only a super talented bike builder, but he's also a family man, and he grew up listening to punk rock and skateboarding, so we had a ton of stuff to talk about. I hope you guys dig this one. It was a really fun one to put together. A little warning going into this, the audio quality is not perfect. We ended up doing this one over the phone, and I tried out some new stuff with recording that I don't think worked out too well, but it's still a great conversation, and I think it's worth it. So if the sound bothers you, I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I have a few solutions. One thing you could do is listen to this episode through crappy speakers, or if you're listening to it in a car, you could try rolling down the window, or if you're listening to it in your phone, just go ahead and unplug the headphones, put it on speakerphone, preferably like on public transportation or in close quarters with someone else. Those are my solutions. Other than that, here it is. Thank you so much, Jason, for your time. And thank you, Billy, so much for coming through again on this one. I won't say anything else. It's a fun interview. Hope you guys enjoy it. Here it is, episode 19. Thank you so much for listening.
So how does this, can you hear me okay through my phone? I'm always like, I think my phone's broken or something.
I can hear you just fine. Nick, can you hear him?
Yeah, it's a little quiet, but it
Okay. And then, cussing, am I okay to cuss, or is it
Oh,
weird?
absolutely.
Fuck yeah.
I'm not, really a fucking sailor, but, I will emphasize with a couple F-bombs every once in a while. That's just how I talk, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's the internet. It's whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, so, is there before we, I guess, really get into it, is there any topics you would want to really touch on? Are there questions that you get asked a million times over that you really don't want to discuss?
I don't know. I mean, I do get asked a bunch of questions all the time, but sometimes it kind of helps, kind of provoke a different answer. Not a different answer, but I don't know.
Sure.
Ask me whatever. I'm not really that particular. There's no off-topic kind of stuff okay, we can't talk about this. I don't want to talk about, the new Harley Davidson that just came out the other day.
Ooh, yeah, the death of the Dyna.
That shit, because everything that was made after the 70s, I don't really care about Harley. So, and plus my friend Brad was kind of one of the guys on the designing committee of that bike, so I was I'm not gonna badmouth it. It's just not my flavor.
Right.
But yeah, I don't really care, dude. I'm just kind of up for just rambling on about whatever topics. Do you guys have some questions or something, or is it just kind of off the top of your head kind of shit?
Pretty much. I had a rough idea of a few things that I want to talk about. Definitely. I actually wanted to talk about back in the day where you and Billy knew each other, because I think that's interesting, and it helps tell the story of how you got from there to where you are now.
Yeah.
And I shoot for just a conversation. It's not really a strict interview. I just want to get a feel for who you are and what's important to you, so your fans can have a better understanding of the whole package. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I always like to touch on for instance, so we recently interviewed Roger Moret from Agnostic Front and the Rumblers Car Club, and I was more interested in
a real famous guy.
Yeah, he actually he lives kind of near me, so I had just walked up to him at a car show one day and was like, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast?" And he was like, "Sure. Do you want to just come over to my house and I'll show you my entire Misfits record collection?"
Oh man,
it was insane. Dude, we were digging through every record you've ever any punk rock record you've ever seen in a magazine. He has every copy.
Yeah, every variant, every minor threat, every oh man.
Yeah. Hey, you want to see this first pressing of Bad Brains? It's worth $5,000.
Yeah. At one point, he's like, "Hey, do you want to see the reels for United Blood? What? The original masters of that." It was insane.
It boggles my mind sometimes how people acquire some of this shit that they have.
Seriously.
That's what was like blowing our mind.
It's like historical stuff, you know, like just everything. I don't know. I got a stockpile of bullshit that I have, but even that sometimes it just pales in comparison to some of the stuff. Like I got friends that have. I just know people that have like crazy. But at this point in my life, it's mostly motorcycle shit because it's kind of been a huge part of my life for like the last decade. So that's mostly what I've been surrounding myself with. So of course that's kind of the people I'm going to be around. But you know, just
right.
all kinds of shit. No, that's cool. That sounds good.
Cool. I guess the first question like I would have, I guess, would be growing up in like the Fullerton, Anaheim area. Kind of cut out a little bit, but growing up in the Fullerton, Anaheim area, like a heavy skateboard influence, like BMX, punk rock. How do you feel like that shaped how you started building bikes?
I don't know, like the specific answer to that, but I've always thought like all those things kind of go hand in hand. You know, it's always like the element of being just kind of different, you know, like or just not part of the norm. And you know, with skateboarding and BMX are both kind of like just not like main. Well, I guess nowadays it's a little different, but like when we were younger, they weren't necessarily the mainstream sport or the mainstream just culture kind of thing. And but it was obviously more of a subculture. And, you know, once I got into motorcycles, I kind of realized how that was, and still is, definitely a sort of like a subculture of sorts. And you know, as I've kind of gotten a little bit older, and so I'm not so involved in the skateboarding scene, you know, that's kind of found a little bit of a home in the motorcycle scene. It's kind of like where like skateboarders can go to retire and still feel like they're doing something, you know, kind of anti whatever, you know, even though it's all becoming totally cool and popular, but you know, I don't let that kind of stuff affect me and my world. You know, I see so many people complain about, oh, these fucking hipsters and doing this and doing it. It's like, who cares? Like, it doesn't affect you. Like, it definitely doesn't affect me. Every day I've got my bikes, I've got my own life. You know what I mean? I don't really care too much what like people that really have zero connection with me do with their lives. So I don't know. It's just kind of a weird. I don't know. It's weird. You know? It's just your own little thing, I guess, and it just the transition seemed pretty effortlessly. So yeah.
Yeah, we talk about that quite a bit. How there, you know, we're into cars a lot, like early '60s stuff, and we meet a lot of people that like either came from skateboarding or like punk rock, and somehow found their way into that hobby. And it's like almost funny, like how many people you run across that you have things in common with that you did when you were a kid, you know, and now we've all kind of moved on to other things.
You know, there's something, it's a little bit more of like I said, it's kind of like a grown-up step, you know, in that direction, but it still like has that youthful kind of feel to it. So you still kind of feel like, oh, I'm doing the kind of shit I did when I was a kid. So like, none of us were building choppers or working on, well, I mean, some were, but you know, like working on cars when we were little kids, but it keeps you young. It's like kind of like an element of, I don't know, like a fountain of youth, you know, it gives you some sort of purpose, you know. I mean, like, obviously I've got plenty of purpose. I've got a wife and 3 kids, so, you know, I definitely already have a driving factor in my life, but this is just kind of on a personal level, like, okay, I still have a thing that's mine, you know?
Yeah, like a creative outlet.
Yeah, you know, and it so happens to be poppers. You know, it was cars for a while, and I just kind of realized how much space cars take up and how long it takes to, like, accomplish anything on the car. And it's like, man, a motorcycle you could put on a table and you could attack it from all sides and you're not laying on your back. And I don't know. It's kind of where the motorcycle stuff came in. It just logically seemed easier and took up less space. So plus all my friends that were in the cars were kind of like starting to fade out of it. And I just need something bright and shiny to pop up, and you know, and it just happened to be like motorcycles. Just see a couple dudes locally on choppers, like, oh, what's that? And you learn what it is. And, you know, I was learning about motorcycles long before I even had one. So, you know, I was a fan of it. And just one day I kind of pull the trigger.
So you were like pretty heavily involved with like Born Free since like the inception of it. Like, how did that come about? And did you ever think like you'd be like an invited builder for that? And what's that been like?
Man, it really was just a little show, you know. At the time, there wasn't really a whole lot going on down here. And since I'm friends with, I know those guys, you know, we all live in this little circle here in Orange County. So it's like, I've known all the involved players since way before the inception of the show. So, you know, becoming an invited builder, I was there for the very first time they did the actual invited builder thing. And really, even from the first time, I think it was kind of just loosely organized. I just happened to call Mike and be like, hey, dude, I've got this Knucklehead project. I want to build it for the show. And I hear you guys are trying to, like, showcase some dudes. So I kind of want to do it. And he's like, okay. And then from there on out, it's just been kind of natural, you know. It's a pretty gnarly thing to do. I think a lot of people, and I don't even really build insane bikes like on the level that some of these guys do, you know, but just even a moderately built bike is still pretty time consuming. And then the second you put like a completion date on it, it fucks you up mentally. At least for me, that's how it is for me. I'm like, you know, if I was just doing it on my own, I could probably bang it out real quick. But no, you start thinking like, okay, I can slack, and you put certain stuff off that you probably shouldn't. And man, it's every single time it's just a race down to the wire. It's like, one of the things I don't think a lot of people understand is like most of those bikes that are built for the show, most of them are started for the very first time like that Friday before the show. It's not, I know it's not just me. It's most of the guys. So it's kind of a mind fuck being a part of the whole thing, but you know, it's definitely neat to have that show, something as big as that show has become, to be a platform for just regular dudes like me, you know? And, you know, there's some guys that are taking it and running with it, trying to do big things, and there's people like me that are kind of like dialing it back a little bit, you know, from where I was a few years ago. And I was kind of actively involved in the scene, and, you know, and I don't know, just kind of realizing how fun being a dad is. So it's definitely like slowed down my time in the garage, but, you know, I'll still go to every Born Free, you know. It's still a rad event just to see friends, you know. But it's just, I don't know. It's crazy. It's just so much bigger. It's so much bigger than it was. It's hard to even imagine what it came from to where it is now. So.
Yeah, totally. And that show's got enormous.
Yeah, I was at the Harley factory a couple of years ago. We were kind of doing this little like behind the scenes tour thing, and they're like showing us all like the archives and all the like little specialty rooms, and they've got in their office building, they've got like several rooms that are dedicated to like a couple shows. They've got like a one meeting room or something that's called like the Daytona room, and then they've got another room that's like the Sturgis room, and they had another room that was called like the Born Free room. It's like, fuck, wow. That thing has already like ascended to the ranks of that kind of notoriety, you know. It's just pretty insane to even think about. And it all started right here in my backyard. It's still going, so.
That's awesome, man. Do you think that a lot of the craziness of how big it's gotten is through like Instagram and all that?
Man, I would have to imagine it is. Instagram, I mean, all the social media things, but I think Instagram is the big one. I don't really mess with anything else but Instagram, but it just puts so many people in touch with so many more people, and with ease too, you know. Like at this point, I always tell my wife, it's like, man, it's crazy to think that at this, like right now, like today, you could pick me up and drop me off in almost any country in the world, and I could probably have a link to somebody, like to a couch I could sleep on for the night. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy to even think that that's even like a possibility. You know, when I was a kid, like I never even knew anybody from another country, and now I'm going to other countries just to hang out with friends and look at motorcycles and do crazy shit like that. It's just made the world that much more approachable. And so, You know,
Yeah.
Anytime you got something cool, it's gonna shine, and you know, with a tool like Instagram, there's no stopping it.
I had this crazy thing happen on Instagram the other day. I was walking out by the pharmacy here, and there was this weird trailer. It was like shaped like a snail shell. It was all painted white, and it was like abandoned. So I took a picture of it. I said something snarky, and I hashtagged it snail trailer. And goddamn it, if it wasn't the correct hashtag for the trailer, it turned out that like 10 days ago the thing got stolen. Someone found their stolen trailer because I was snarky and used the stupid hashtag. So like they were posting pictures like, yeah. How crazy is that? Like the world is that small.
It's definitely a tool, you know. It's anything like with just the whole marketing aspect of it all, you know. You just think of, that's why you see a lot of print. Like print is dying because it's like social media is where everybody's at. Everybody's got their face is buried in their phone. It's like you want to be effective, you want to be where the people's eyes are, and like people don't have their eyes up looking around. They're staring at their phone. So it's definitely like a double-edged sword. You know, there's a ton of good that comes from it, and then there's like a ton of bad, you know, where people just they disconnect from the real world that's around them. I know I definitely have been victim of it. You know, it comes and goes way for me. Like I'll have to check myself. Like, dude, you're staring at your phone too much. Like you have to like back off. And you know, I have to like physically like, you know, like reprimand myself. Like, yo, don't pick up your phone. You got, you know, that phone's in my pocket. And I just like, did it just vibrate? Do I need to check it? You know, it's fucking crazy.
I know. You know, it was funny. Like we were at Moon Eyes, and I kept looking around, and all these people aren't like looking at cars; they're like looking at their phones, probably looking at pictures of cars and bikes, like instead of just looking at the ones in front of them, which is hilarious.
Yeah, you know, one thing I've kind of noticed a little bit is like usually when I'm having a good time, I don't pick my phone up.
Totally.
Or like, you know what I mean? And I, for a while I was just, you know, it's like just natural instinct. You just kind of take photos, like, oh, photo. But now, pretty often I'll catch myself like doing something like, dang, I didn't take any photos of that. And like for a second I'll be bummed, like, oh man, I can't even post it on Instagram. But then it's like I have to check myself again and be like, no, that's good. That means that you're living a little bit. Like, fucking right, man. And so there's like a little bit of a battle going on in my head all the time with some of the stuff. And maybe that makes me a kook, but I definitely, it's just something I think about in my head for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Nick, what do you got, man? I know I've been kind of firing out more of some questions here.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to talk about At the Risers. Do you want to tell us how you got started with that?
Sure. It was definitely a story I've told before, but you know, it's nothing crazy. It's just, you know, I don't even know how long ago it was. Maybe let's just say 2008, 2009, maybe. I don't know. Or actually, the name came about before that. My friend Brandon Casquillo, who is Mullins Chain Drive, and then Scott T-Bone, everybody calls him T-Bone, Scott Jones, over at Noise Cycles. We were over at Brandon's house one day, and Brandon was making me some little handlebars from my old Triumph. And remember, like, they were just these tiny little narrow T-bars, and they were so close together. I was like, you know, we were kind of joking, like, those things your thumbs can touch, you know, they're so narrow. And I remember, like, Brandon, I think he said, like, yeah, you're like at the risers. And we go, oh yeah, at the risers, and we kind of joked, and Brandon was like, ATR, at the risers. And it was just kind of like, and it was just a joke. We just kind of like, oh, that's my ATR, that's our crew, at the risers. And then fast forward a little while longer, I think T-Bone had made a couple like ATR points covers, like just because it was just me, T-Bone, and Brandon. Because and at the time, I think he was working for West Coast Choppers and he had access to a water jet. So he pumped out a couple of those things, and that was like beyond that was it. And then like fast forward a couple of years after that, you know, everybody at this time, like people had already had like blogs and stuff going on, You know, like Max had his blog, obviously, like the king of blogs. That was the one like most of us kind of modeled ours after, or wanted, you know, just kind of wanted to be on that vein of the blogosphere. And I remember I was just kind of like, oh, dude, like, I need a name. And I just remember like, oh, dude, I'll just call it At the Risers, you know, because, you know, it sounded deep, you know, ooh, At the Risers, like, all, you know, and it worked. And then after doing the blog, you know, my buddy Nick Simmons is, like, my best friend, but he's, you know, he has his own, like, silkscreen business and stickers and kind of, that's what he does. And so he's like, dude, you should make some ATR shirts. And I was like, you know, I'm always like skeptical on doing anything as far as like taking progressive steps forward in life. But I was like, oh, I don't know, no one's gonna buy it. It's stupid, and blah blah. But finally, it's just like, dude, like I make them. Let's just make them. You're not going out on a limb. It's not gonna cost you basically anything. And so I just made shirts. And then, you know, I think I drew the first logo. And then that was it. We made some shirts and people are stoked. Kind of just made it for like friends. And then it just kind of progressed from there. And you know, even to this day, it's still a small thing. It's hardly, I would hardly even call it a company, you know, at least in my head, it doesn't feel like a company. I know we definitely have been kind of like this past year, both Nick and I have kind of taken a little bit of a break because I think we both needed it. We've been pretty invested in all of this for a while. So like, dude, you just need to kind of like just take a breather. You know, Nick's kind of got his own thing going on that he does. It's called like Fartco. He does all these little, like cartoons.
I love his art.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. So it's just, he's just kind of focusing doing his thing, and I'm just kind of focusing on being a dad and like enjoying the youth of my kids because, you know, I kind of had a breaking point like a year or two ago where I kind of realized that thing that your parents always say, you know, they're like, oh, watch out, your kids are going to grow up before you know it. And I was like, oh, shut up, Mom, shut up, Dad, like that kind of shit. Then I blinked one day and realized, like, my kids were growing up just as quick, if not quicker, than my parents ever said. And so I was like, oh, dude, I need to get out of the garage. And I could just kind of, like, close the garage door, and I've just kind of been on a little bit of a hiatus, like, you know, taking it easy. Like, the only time I come out in the garage, well, I'm out in the garage right now because it's the only place quiet. But, you know, I just come out here for just little stuff, you know. I necessarily haven't been taking on any major customer stuff or anything like that. Just little stuff for me, maybe a little stuff for friends, but definitely, you know, just taking it easy for the first time in a long time. Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer.
No, that was great, dude. That was awesome.
But, you know, I know as far as ATR, as it sits, you know, like we're just kind of chilling, and you know, maybe I'll draw something. Probably not. It'll probably be Nick because he's more ambitious with that stuff, and I'm just retarded. But you know, I'll probably just make something soon. Maybe for Christmas we'll make a couple shirts. You know, it's not like a money maker for either of us, you know, per se. It just kind of feeds itself. It's just one of those things like you feel like, hey, look, I'm a part of this, you know. It's just like my contribution to the world. Like, hey, look at, like, me and Nick, we make kind of goofy shirts. If you like them, here you go, you know. And it's just kind of a way of still feeling like a part of something, you know, that's actually grown to be exponentially bigger than I think most of us thought it would. You know, because I think that was the general appeal to it in the beginning, was just kind of how, like, small it was and still kind of, like, not necessarily cool. And now it's cooler, and here I am. You guys.
So
who knew?
So, like, what's the coolest country you've gotten to visit, like, due to this whole crazy chopper shit that you got involved with?
Man, like, I will say the most unique at this point would probably be Malaysia. There's definitely a country I never ever would have thought I would go to for motorcycles or choppers or this counterculture kind of thing ever. And I went there last year, and it was super rad. And it's actually super inspiring. Was that last year or the year before? That was last year. It's super inspiring to see like people in a country like, you know, because like I've been to Japan, but you expect that because you know it's already huge there. I went to Brazil too. That was insane to see. But still, I think Malaysia was probably the craziest, just because it's in my mind, and this is probably going to sound really naive, but I keep thinking like not necessarily like third world country, but you just don't think like Harley Davidson, especially like the chopper aspect of it, like kind of like, you know, just cut up stuff and just make it your own. I think we're spoiled being here in America. It's so easy for us, you know. You could go on any, you know, almost any swap meet. There's several swap meets all over the place, and everything's so easily obtainable. Then you go to a place like Malaysia, where it's almost impossible to have or do any of this stuff, like legally and lawfully, and there's still people that are just doing it, and it's like, it's fucking inspiring. And like I said, like when I went there was a couple of rad choppers. Like I met this dude Faisal, who had like this bitchin' like generator shovel, and he's telling me how he had to like, basically it's kind of like that Johnny Cash song, like one part at a time. And he had like the motor, he had to like window, or he had to like kind of like ship it through like Saudi Arabia in order to get it into it. It is this crazy like lengths people go to get cool shit down there, because it's like, you know, taxes and like all that stuff. It's almost impossible to import it like legally, and so it's like way more renegade for them, you know. Not like these guys like that dude Faisal. He's got one bike, or he's got, I want to say he's got like 3 Harleys. He's got like an old like kind of like stock Panhead, and that shovel, and I think they all have the same license plate, you know, that he just shares.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of cool. It's like, dude, that's fucking punk, man. You guys are killing it down here, and there's several other guys down there doing it too, and you know, there's guys that are just chopping up like, you know, like in America when you see a dude like chop up like a moped, you know, I think a lot of us, you know, I'll admit I've done it before too, and I don't want to sound like an asshole, but you kind of get this like, oh, a chop like scooter, like real cool, bro, you know, like I know it's fucking lame to admit, but I know I've felt that before, but I'll admit it. Like you go down there and you see these dudes like chopping up scooters, and you're like, fuck yeah, dude, you guys are killing it. You know what I mean? It really changed a lot for me. Just kind of like my outlook on things. You know, just how spoiled we are. You know, you see these dudes just killing it. It's like, all right, I'm just gonna stop complaining. I'm gonna stop being a bitch and just like realize, like, you know, there's other people that are doing it, and just stop being so critical of things. You know, I've never really been that critical. You know, even if something really like kind of bums me out, I don't really, you know, talk about it, because I don't want to bum anybody out. You know, it's not like I want to like, you know, make somebody sad or something. You know, but yeah, right. It definitely kind of checked me a little bit for sure.
Right on. Like I've always admired like Japan, especially like, and I'm sure it's probably the same in Malaysia. Like they don't really have like a rule book like we do in America, where we're like, oh, it has to be this way. Like traditionally, it has to be done this way, or it's not right at all. And I see that a lot with cars that come out of Japan and you know, other countries especially. And I feel like we kind of like set these boundaries for ourselves that we have to follow, and other people are like, no, I think this is how it should be.
No, that's a super good point. You know, you know, I think a lot of this stuff kind of originated in America. You know, so we kind of like, okay, this is choppers, and we kind of let it out into the world. And then all these other people with different like kind of viewpoints, like, okay, let's take what they did and run with it. And that's what you said, like a while ago, like the Japanese car culture and choppers, like all this stuff wouldn't fly in America per se. You know, it's like, oh, these crazy D-rake bikes. It's like, that's not what you do. You rake out a bike. You know, in America, you don't D-rake it, but it just creates this entirely new genre of chopper, kind of. You know, it's like a Japanese style chopper. You look it up, like there's a ton of bikes. You look at it like, yeah, that's a Japanese chopper. Even though it's almost like identical to American one, but you could just it's automatic, the influences of it. And no, I think it's rad. Same thing with cars, dude. There's like some insane car builders there, like especially lowrider guys. They've got like a really gnarly lowrider culture there. Dude, they just take it to the next level. You know, to be honest, there's a lot of Americans that are making a living doing this, and probably step it up.
Right.
Crazy show circuit, you know, you just think about it like, man, like, you know, but at the same time, dude, and I'm not even taking anything away from America, or not even from anybody. The coolest thing is, like, some of these guys, like, here and there, there's just guys building shit in their garages that are, like, 10 times better than stuff that comes out of these big, flashy shops, fabrication shops, you know? And, you know, I think it's kind of going back to the Born Free thing. And, you know, I remember a couple of years ago, or at least when I built the green bike a couple of years ago, Jesse James was kind of, I think he was scheduled to be an invited builder for it. And I was kind of excited because, you know, like when I was younger, like I never really was into his bikes, but like I liked the fabrication sense of it. You know, it's like I can appreciate, like, it's not necessarily my style, but I understand what went into it, and I can appreciate that, you know? And so I was a fan kind of it, just because I'm a fan of anybody that's a craftsman and kind of does their own thing. And so I remember when he was going to be a part of it, I was kind of like excited, like, dude, that's going to be pretty rad. Like little old me, like kind of sharing a stage with this dude who's kind of like a god of sorts, you know, who a lot of people would definitely consider like the godfather of choppers or whatever people say on television shows or whatever, you know? And then he ended up pulling out of the deal and kind of being like, I'm not going to put my bikes up against, just piece together choppers from skateboarders or something like that.
Oh man.
And I remember he said like something like that. And I remember being kind of being bummed, you know, because I'm not like it was an attack at me per se, but just his general view of everybody. But I remember kind of thinking to myself, like, dude, I wonder if he kind of got cold feet thinking like, because this is like Born Free, it's a different world from the world that Jesse James came from. You know what I mean? Like this is still kind of like the homegrown, like do it yourself, like do it in a garage kind of atmosphere still. And he's like main stage, television, Sturgis, like, you know, it's just like a different level. And for him to come to our level, you know, like, I think he may have, this is just speculation, but it doesn't seem too crazy to think that maybe he pulled out because there was a chance he was going to lose to some regular dude in his garage with regular tools and basic knowledge, but has a good eye for a classic, traditionally styled chopper with kind of some unique lines that maybe, you know, Jesse James has probably progressed way past, but like kind of like forgotten in the roots of all. You know, I think somebody like him is so concerned with like just overly fabricating and doing all this crazy stuff that sometimes, you know, people forget, like, and sometimes simple is better. And so I always kind of entertain the idea in my head, like maybe he quit because he didn't want to lose to just some Joe Schmo, like nobody. Because how think about it, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, that's like Floyd Mayweather almost, like if he was to lose to that McGregor guy this weekend. I'm not into boxing, I'm not into MMA really, but you know, I understand how it goes, and it's like that guy Floyd Mayweather kind of has a legacy, and if he loses to a guy that's not a boxer, regardless of the fact that he's 20 years younger or whatever the case, it's like, you know, in the way I'm just like, man, you shouldn't have taken the fight. You should just kind of pull back. And who knows? He might just smoke McGregor, and I'm an idiot, and whatever. But it was definitely something that crossed my mind. Like, dude, like that would have sucked for his ego to be like.
Right.
And think about the people that are voting too. Everybody's gonna fan out on Jesse James, but and there's always gonna be that people like Jesse James have the fan base. It's built in. You know what I mean? He's gonna attract. Him coming to the show would probably double the size of the show. You know, who knows? You know, hypothetically. But there is that slim chance that just some regular dude would have whooped his ass. Like, so Yeah, I get it why you pulled out.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. Like, you know, I don't think his ego could handle it.
Yeah, for sure. And the guy is super talented, like beyond anything I will ever know or even aspire to know. But it's just we're like on different wavelengths. So, you know, it's probably for the best. Because to be honest, if he would have came and been a part of the show, it may have opened up the show to a whole slew of those big time builders, and that sometimes that's kind of the way those things work. And then the little guys like us will kind of get phased out of the equation, even though that show is rooted on, you know, the garage builder, the do it yourself, like the one man army kind of dudes, not like my team of fabricators kind of thing, you know?
Right.
So I think it was probably for the best. Jesse James, if you're out there listening, please don't punch me.
Right. He definitely probably would. No, I'm just kidding. Dude, there's a funny story that I remember about your brother, and I can't recall if you were there or not, but we had gone to this Halloween party, and I think it was in like Buena Park, and your brother like borrowed my Clash shirt, and I had bought a pair of leather pants, like, because I was going to wear that as my costume. So anyways, I talked him into wearing that. And then, so I decided to go as like a cholo, like bandana, like teardrop, like, you know, top button, Dickies shorts, like pulled up socks, Nike Cortez, all that. And so like, I have no idea where this party's at. So we go there, and it's like straight in the hood. And some like, and so like, I'm like trying to be in character. I'm like crip walking with the music and stuff like that. And these dudes like that are like actual cholos come up to me, and they're like, where you claim, bro? And I was like, I'm from Fullerton. Like, and they're like, fuck Tokerstown, man. Fuck Tokerstown. Yeah. And so like, your brother like whispers in my ear, he's like, dude, these guys aren't fucking around, man. And so luckily like he knew some of their friends or whatever, and like saved me from getting an ass kicking. But I always thought that was funny, because like I thought they were fucking with me, like they were joking, like they knew I was like a white dude, and they were like literally not too stoked on my costume.
You know, I don't know if I ever heard that story, but for some reason I do remember. And that was a long time ago, but I think I do remember seeing a picture of Steve wearing that shirt or that whole kit.
Yeah, like cut off sleeve, like Clash London Calling shirt, and I gave him a bondage belt and like leather pants.
Yeah, I think that kind of changed his life a little bit, like that. And I started dressing a little bit. He was, I mean, this was a long time ago, but he was more like on the fresh realm of the spectrum, not so much on the hesh.
Yeah.
You know, I think he wore like a little bit baggier clothes, and I think after he wore that, I think his clothes kind of got shrunk down a size, started wearing a little bit more black. That, but dude, I think he changed his life.
I think so. Like leather pants will do that to a man.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. You know, it's funny. Like for years, I'm not even trying to sound like emo or nothing, but it was weird. Like kind of going back to the motorcycle thing with the question earlier when you asked like why I started or whatever. And, doing bikes is kind of the first thing I've ever done that I was kind of like successful like on my own, kind of, you know, and it wasn't just like a shared thing. And God, speaking of my brother, I'm not even throwing him under the bus, but like for a long time I was always kind of like, oh, you're Steve's brother, right? You know, I'm the big brother, you know. I think people supposed to know me, but I was so shy and lame that it was always like, oh, you're Steve's brother, right? Or like, you're so-and-so's friend, right? Like I was never kind of like, I don't want to say never had the spotlight, but I was just never kind of like a dude, you know, like kind of the guy. And it was, you know, I kind of had this epiphany just the other day, really thinking about like, because somebody was talking about, because somebody said something like, oh, you're Steve's brother. And I kind of realized like, dang, dude, I was Steve's brother for a really long time. And now people are like, oh, you're Jason. That's like, whoa, you can kind of know my name, know who I am, even though it's for something that's fucking retarded, motorcycles. But it's kind of, it's like a weird feeling, and I think for a while that's kind of what, I don't want to say that was a driving force, but it was definitely kind of something that was cool to be like, dude, like, I've got my own thing that I'm doing, and people know me for what I'm doing, not for who I know or who I'm, you know, partnered with or who I'm, the group I'm a part of or whatever, you know? Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really form that together very well, but it was just like, it's something that popped in my head the other day. And you bringing up Steve, I just kind of thought about it because it was around that time. It was kind of around that time where I was like, just kind of like thinking in my head, like, dude, like, I don't really have too many friends. I mean, I've got friends, but like, I'm always just like friends of friends. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just probably go kill myself or split my wrist right now. Sorry for that little tangent.
No, it was good, man. Like, it's cool.
Yeah, the old days. Always fun times, man. Fullerton.
So you mentioned like earlier you were like briefly into like building old cars. Like what'd you have? Like anything cool or?
I had like an old '55 Ford Fairlane and like airbags.
Right up my alley.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what got me into like even starting fabricating stuff was like that car. Like I wanted to airbag it really bad. And like I remember just calling places like, hey, how much does it cost to airbag this car? And they're like, yeah, it's like $5,000. I was like, well, that's more than I paid for this car. I guess I'm not doing that. And then just with a little research, I realized like, dude, I can buy a welder, buy an angle grinder, and chop saw, and buy like the pieces and do this myself for half the price. So I kind of did that. And then I realized like, okay, that actually wasn't terribly hard. And then so like, hey, so-and-so, come over here. Let's bag your car. I bagged that car. Like, hey, Brian, bring your Cadillac over here. Let's bag it. And so just started airbagging all these cars. Like, John's old Buick, bag that. And, just kind of doing stuff like that. And, yeah, and so that was kind of my car stuff, was doing that. And, I remember, like, the last kind of thing I started getting into, I got this 29 Roadster project thing that, it was right at the tail end of it. Like, oh, I'm going to build this Roadster. And then I just kind of got like this little BSA project, little chopper thing. I was like, man, like the car started seeming more daunting to me. Just because, you could get like, it's more of that like a instant gratification with the motorcycle. Like, dude, I could do something and actually see results in the day rather than working like a month to see like a speck of results on this car. At least at the pace I was going. So I still have the car. I still have the body. It's sitting on the side of my house. Hasn't been touched in like 12 years, 13 years. I'm probably going to get rid of that. I think that ship has sailed for me. I'm at this point in my life, I'm like, okay, I'll just buy a running Roadster. Not that I can really afford it, but like I could probably sell a bike if I, and make a lateral move.
Totally. Yeah, I'm kind of at that same point.
So I'm always thinking like, okay, well, I want something I could put the family in, like, Because I know that was kind of the thing with the motorcycles. It kind of checked me a little bit in recent years, is because I realized like how selfish I was being with my bikes. I was, for a while I was just riding all the time with my friends, kind of forgetting that I had a wife and kids at home. It was always just like, all right, babe, I'm out of here. And thank God my wife was cool with it, because she knew how much it meant to me. She knew how like happy it made me to like actually have this in my life. And so, but after a while, I kind of realized like how selfish I was being, and like, dude, this thing only seats one person, maybe two, but I was like, dude, I need to get something. I need to stop being so selfish. I need to like do stuff that's more like family friendly, and that's why I don't know. Like the last couple of years, I've just been kind of going out trying to get like. Now that the kids are all old enough, my youngest, Eric, he's 2 years old. He's just like 2.5 now, so he's like old enough to where we can actually like go out and camp comfortably, And kind of even in a remote area too. We don't have to be like in these like one of these glamping campgrounds, where it's fully facilitated and everything, So that's kind of the page I'm on right now, doing that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun, man. I think I don't know, just having kids and stuff, it's really changed my life dramatically in the last few years. Now, obviously, my daughter's like almost 9. She'll be 9 on Monday. It's crazy to think. But it was, it's kind of really hit me hard the last few years. It's kind of how cool it is having kids. Like, I think kids are still kind of this stigma. Like, people are like, ew, kids. Like, and I get it, because I was there too before I had kids. You know, I kind of wanted nothing to do with them. But now that I've got them, I realize, like these things, my kids, these things, it's like they're toys. But it's like, you get so much more out of them than I ever have out of, like, motorcycles and stuff. It's just like a different thing, you know. And, like, I kind of always find myself kind of like I am now, like, pushing the whole, like, dude, you should think about having kids. Like, I know kids aren't for everybody, but it's just rad, you know? It kind of changes your whole perspective on life, like, what's really important, and, you know, and shit, they even inspired me. Like, I've taken this little break to kind of focus on hanging out with them. So just hanging out with them has kind of inspired me to, like, want to do more with my life. To be like, dude, I want to leave some sort of, like, not like a legacy, like, you know, or even some financial legacy, because that probably won't happen either, because I'm a hoarder and buy way too much shit. So they're going to, cool, thanks for the garage full of a trash, Dad, when I die. But, you know, just something to be, you know, I think I've said this before with, like, even getting in some of these magazines with the bike stuff. It's being a young skater, you know, who never became, like, a pro or nothing like that. Like, you know, I always wanted to be, like, in a magazine, because that's kind of like the pinnacle. That's like, dude, you've made it. You're in a mag. Like, I got a picture in a Thrasher or something like that. And that ship sailed for me long ago, and I accepted that. But then with the motorcycles, kind of getting the opportunity to be, like, on a cover of a major magazine, like, in all these grocery stores, like, going into a grocery store and there's me on a motorcycle, like, it's fucking insane. And so it's, like, having that to show, like, my kids are, like, super stoked for me. Like, I'm pretty fortunate to have, like, cool kids. They always hang out in the garage with me. Like, my daughter Maggie, like, I mean, she's a little bit older, so she's totally got her own thing going on. But, you know, when she was younger, and, like, and the boys now, they just hang out in the garage, barefoot, stepping on metal shavings, like, don't even care. You know, they just kind of want to be a part of what I'm doing, and it kind of amps me up, and kind of like, dude, I want to, like, do stuff with you guys, for you guys, and, you know, I can't wait till you guys are older, like, make you a chopper, let's, like, build you a car, let's, you know, it just gives you a whole new, like, reason for wanting to do stuff, and for the first time, not just for yourself, like, from a selfish aspect, you know, it's like, wow, I actually want to do something for somebody else, like, you know, it's a crazy statement, but I think a lot of people don't realize just how selfish you can be, and kids definitely, like, smack that reality into you, for sure, you know, when you're wiping somebody's shit off their butt, or, you know what I mean, like, I tell people, like, I'm constantly waking up in a pool of shit, piss, or puke, and for the first time in my life, it's not mine. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, you kind of got to get used. It's a thing, you know, you got to get used to, but it kind of humbles you to the point where it's like, okay, like, I've probably changed more. I've changed thousands of diapers at this point in my life, and you know, me 15, 20 years ago, I would have been like, no fucking way. No way. Now, I don't even blink an eye. I'm like, give me that diaper. Oh, we don't have wipes? Fuck it. I'll just use my hand, and I'll wash my hands off in the sink. Like, you just don't care. Because the important thing is just getting the shit off your kid's butt. And, I know this conversation kind of derailed pretty quick. Hey, that's what happens when you become a dad, I guess. Or at least how it happens for me. Maybe I'm the weirdo.
That's awesome, dude. Nick, do you have anything else, man? Like, I kind of used all of my questions.
Yeah, I think we covered just about all the stuff I wanted to ask about. Do you have a next build plan or something exciting coming up like that?
I would say it's exciting for me. I don't know about for the world. My knuckle that I built for just my knuckle that I built for the first Born Free invited builder thing, the one for 3 headlights.
Mm-hmm.
I rode that for a while, broke the frame, kind of switched it up, rode that for a while, broke the motor. It's been sitting in my garage for like 3 years, and I just haven't had time to get to it in pieces. But I think, I don't know, sometime soon I'm gonna start redoing that. I'm just gonna kind of redo the whole bike. I'm just gonna, I was debating, should I just kind of put it back together the way it was? Because I still have most of the parts, but I've kind of like popped out some of the other parts. Once the bike comes apart, like those pieces get eaten up pretty quickly, especially because Harleys are fairly interchangeable with most of this shit. So it's like, I'm going to take this wheel, I'm going to take this sprocket, I'm going to take this gas tank, and, like really the only thing that's existing from the original bike is like, I've got the tank fender that Max painted for me, and the motor and the frame, and I don't know, everything is just kind of scattered around. So I think I'm just gonna redo it like completely different, something pretty traditional, but not for any real reason. I'm just gonna do it at my own pace. I was thinking of like, oh man, like the way this is lining up, I could probably time it and build it for Born Free. And I was like, wait, no, because I know what Born Free does to me mentally, and I just can't. I can't like work on that level, especially with my work. I have a real job, and I have a family, and I just kind of need to do it when I can do it. So I don't know. Hopefully I'll have it done sometime next year. And, it's not going to be, I'm not building a spaceship. It's going to be a pretty traditionally based bike. I don't think I have ever built a spaceship. I'm just not physically capable of like the fabrication levels that are required to like go that nuts. It's like, I think my style has been dictated by my talent. So I just there's a realm I stick to, which is pretty easy, traditional like 60s-ish styled bikes are, you can do them really simply and they look just as cool as bikes that are done like insanely. So I don't know. I think that's kind of my next big move. I think my green Panhead, I think I'm gonna have to try and sell that to facilitate that knuckle build because I have to redo everything on it.
That's a gorgeous
blew up
bike.
the motor, and I broke the frame jumping it in Arizona at some Love Cycles, like camp out like years ago. I broke the frame, and then I blew up the motor in Death Valley, like trying to like pin it going uphill, like 105 degree, like day. Just got too hot and just like went pop. But we'll see. I'm just, a lot of my friends were kind of like, dude, you never ride, you never do anything. I'm like, yeah, I know. But it's like, kind of when I tell people, and people tell me all the time, it's the same thing. It's like, dude, this stuff will all be here when you want to come back. And it's true, I don't really get disheartened by the fact that I'm not riding every single day or I'm out in the garage every single day. Because it's like, I still have the stuff, I still have the tools. As long as I still have the tools and like the means to do it, like, I'll be fine. I could sell everything and still kind of get away with it and figure it out, I think that's one of the things I'm kind of battling too. Like, dude, I could definitely get rid of a lot of my stuff and thin the herd. Like, I don't need 30 motorcycles. Like, I've only got one crop. I can only ride one at a time. Like, if I get sick of that, I'll change it up a little bit, like, so, I don't know. I think that's probably the plan is rebuild my knucklehead and then just kind of get rid of some of the stuff I don't really need. But, yeah, and build a rock crawler. That's what I'm going to do. Rock choppers. I'm going to build like some gnarly rock crawler. That's what I'm actually going to do. But I just have to mention the chopper thing so people don't forget about me.
Nice.
Awesome, man. Well, I think that's probably a pretty good place to end it. Thank you so much, man. This is a lot of fun. I'm glad we finally made this work out.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I love talking about myself.
Dude, thank you so much, Jason. It was really cool catching up, man, and reminiscing about the old days and all that shit.
Well, all right. Wow, you made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I know the audio was a little rough. Fortunately, I think I sounded the worst on that, and Billy sounded great. Billy was rocking his own microphone on his end, so thank you, Billy. You know, man, I was so disappointed when I heard the audio for this for the first time. I had actually thought like maybe I should call him up and see if we could redo it, but that that wasn't going to happen for a number of reasons. You know, we had tried to do this thing probably 4 or 5 times, and as you heard in the interview, like one of those, even God himself was against it, us or herself, I suppose, and like knocked down a tree in Billy's neighborhood, like the day we were gonna record it. So ultimately, I'm glad we came up with something, and it is what it is. You know, I'm trying all over life, not just with the podcast, but also with cars, with work, with myself, trying to take things for what they are and not stress out too much about making everything perfect, because 1, I don't have the time, and 2, I don't have the skills, and 3, you know, it ultimately doesn't matter. I mean, if you made it this far into the interview, hopefully you found something worth listening to. Anyways, there it is. That's episode 19. Episode 20 is the next one. That's a big deal. So I hope I can do something special. Either way, I'll see you guys here next time. Thank you so much for listening.